everyone. Adrian Alexander here from Free the Slaves. We are the Secretariat to the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons. And I'm also co-chair of the membership committee. It's wearing that particular hat that I'm here with you today for another edition of Member Spotlight. With me today is Ms. Judy Sango, who is, I'm not sure in which way to describe Judy. She is a phenomenal advocate for persons with disabilities, and she wears so many hats. But in relation to the membership on the coalition, we'll be speaking this evening about her role as president of Youth with Disabilities Connections. So welcome to the Member Spotlight, Judy. It's great to have you.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Mr. Alexander. It is a pleasure for me to be here.
Great, great. And I know that we interviewed you a few months ago with another hat as president of the Dominica Association of Persons with Disabilities. So some of our viewers may be familiar with your name and your face, but this is just a different incarnation, as it were, of Judy's leadership skills. All right. So tell us a bit about Youth with Disabilities Connections.
So I am fortunate to serve as the president, program director, and founder of Youth with Disabilities Connections. This is a Caribbean group that was founded during the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is a group that sought to bring young people together from the varying Caribbean islands, especially the English-speaking Caribbean islands, because during that time, I felt that COVID-19 was something that, was going to keep young people indoors. And what I did not want to happen was for young people to go through the pandemic all alone. I wanted to, of course, keep that connection, even virtually, to ensure that our advocacy will continue. And so I started this with a very small number. I remember the first time we met virtually. We met via Google Meet, and we started with about 11 participants. And today we have grown. So we have members from Antigua, we have members from Dominica, where I am from. We have members from Guyana. Actually, most of our active members at Youth with Disabilities Connections come from Guyana. There is St. Lucia. So the young people have been very active, and of course, we continue to lend our voices to the all important discussions that happen when it concerns young people with disabilities. Because a lot of the time, we find that when there are parent groups and discussions are happening, young people are hardly ever included in those discussions, and decisions are being made on our behalf, and we have little to no input. And so at Youth with Disabilities Connections, we create an open space for young people to share their views, and of course those of us who hold higher positions in different organizations, we use that feedback that we get at Youth with Disabilities to include the to inform to make better informed decisions going forward, so that all young persons with disabilities are included.
Yeah, that's amazing, Judy. And I love the fact that this is something that you recognize could have been potentially harmful to
Yes.
people during the COVID-19, because really and truly a lot of persons who felt isolated
Yeah.
may have developed some mental health challenges and other relationship type of
Yeah.
challenges. So to
Yeah.
think about that, and he said we started with just a small group. I'm thinking maybe three or four,
Mhm.
but 11 is that's double digits, right? So that was a good start. And the fact that they remain active and you
Yeah.
continue working with them and expanding to other Caribbean nations, that is really a blessing. So when you say youth, what is the age group that really makes up the bulk of your membership?
So the age group that makes up the bulk of our membership is 16 to 35. However, we do encourage all persons, whether or not you have a disability and whether or not you perceive yourself as a young person, to join us. Um, because we understand that everybody's voice matter, and including the elders. We don't leave the elders because we understand that they help us to pave the way for a better future, and so everybody is truly included. We are fortunate to have elders who do guide our decisions. They don't make decisions first, but we have three advisors to the executives, and so they do help us to make better informed decisions. They don't make the decisions first. It's ultimately up to us.
That I love. I love that, Judy. Mere fact that there's that intergenerational relationship that exists so that you have the youth, you have the enthusiasm, you have the brilliant ideas, but they have the experience and they may know some of the pitfalls so that by connecting with them and listening to them and getting their perspectives, it
Yeah,
helps you as the executive to avoid some of the pitfalls or to
yeah,
develop new strategies should they ever present themselves. So kudos to
certainly.
you. When you said 35, I said I missed it by a decade, but or more. All right. But
Yeah.
that I think was wonderful. And you mentioned Guyana, definitely the bulk of your active members,
Uh-huh.
Dominica, where you're from, St. Lucia, and Antigua.
Yeah.
Anyone from Trinidad and Tobago? Or...
We certainly do have young people from Trinidad and Tobago. Actually, when we first started, I think it was September. It was September for sure when we started. The bulk of our members came from Trinidad and Tobago.
So what happened? Well, your membership grew, and then of course the
Yeah.
numbers
The
shifted.
Guyanese took over.
Oh no, well that's great. It's
They
great that
took
you have from South, um, East as well as well,
yeah.
Eastern Caribbean primarily and Southern Caribbean. So that's great. And I had the pleasure of meeting you last year,
Yeah.
and that was in Suriname. I
Yes.
don't remember which organization you were representing then. Was that Youth with
I was
Disabilities Connection?
representing the Dominica Association of Persons with Disabilities.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, right. And that was a discussion, of course, on climate mobility. Are themes like climate mobility and things related to climate change
Right.
part of what Youth with Disabilities Connections also looks like?
Yes. We try as much as possible to remain as an organization that does not speak specific issues to deal with, but rather to deal with every issue that confronts young people with disabilities, because we understand that in order for us to truly develop what needs to be developed to better the entire person, we must look at every issue. And so at Youth with Disabilities Connections, when we meet on Sunday afternoons, though not on a consistent basis now, of course, and this is partly due to the president's busy schedule. When we do meet, we speak on a wide range of issues. So we have discussed things like climate change. We have discussed things like employment of persons with disabilities, the law on disability, the role of the church in advocacy, the role of the different civil society organizations, the role of the government, the role of the education system, inclusive education, inclusive hiring practices, and such things like that, inclusion in the workplace, to name a few.
Wow, that is powerful because really you've touched on every major issue,
Yeah.
right? That impacts life of every individual,
So
especially those who may feel marginalized for whatever reason. So those are definitely powerful topics. And is it that you develop policy frameworks to probably advocate for persons with disabilities in those different spaces or engage in consultations with government and civil society stakeholders on it?
Well, at Youth with Disabilities Connections, what we do is because most of our executive, not excluding the president, holds multiple positions. Currently, I am at number 13. I am at 13. When the feedback is gathered, because I am fortunate to serve locally, regionally, and internationally, I use the feedback that is gathered from the young people in making decisions that benefits not just persons in my island, but persons throughout the region and throughout the globe, because I understand that what is done on a small scale should influence the policies and the plans that are implemented by those that are higher up. And I'm fortunate to be at the bottom, but still be at the top.
That is a great perspective, Judy. And 13 leadership positions. That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal.
It is. It
So, in
is.
terms of Youth with Disabilities Connections and um, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, some of our viewers may not be as familiar with the UNCRPD. Can you give us like a Cliff Notes version of what
Uh,
the convention intends to achieve?
So the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is a legally binding framework that many countries throughout the Caribbean and throughout the globe has signed on to. And this is a document that aims to ensure that persons with disabilities are holistically included in our society. And so it deals with matters on law and legislation, family, and the different rights of persons with disabilities. This is a document that is used by almost every organization throughout the globe that deals with persons with disabilities, particularly countries of the United Nations. And this is a comprehensive document that CSOs uh, like uh, like Youth with Disabilities Connections continue to use to educate our young people on their rights, and to help them to make better informed decisions, not just for themselves, but for others, as we all go forward and, continue to be advocates for ourselves and others.
Yeah, I remember having some discussions a few years ago and um, chatting with someone who's in the disability rights movement here in the Caribbean and inquiring about how many countries have passed legislation to give effect to the UN CRPD. And, as you rightly said, there are many countries that have signed on to the convention, but not many have ratified it. Not many have passed
Right.
enabling legislation.
Yeah, and what we find is that countries sign on and they ratify, but many years after ratification, there is no legislation. And I always say that the convention, if it is signed on to and ratified, but it is not implemented in our constitution, first of all, and then in our legislation, it is of no use. Um, but also, um, I must say that this there is not just bad when we ratify, but we do not fully implement. Um, I am now teaching young people throughout the Caribbean, and at Youth with Disabilities Connections, how to use the convention in their respective countries, even though it has been signed on to and ratified but not implemented. Um, how to use that to be advocates for themselves and others in the face of no legislation. Because when you sign on to this is a legally binding document that you are signing on to, whether or not you choose to sign the optional paper, which many countries do not do, sadly, because we do not want to be held responsible. I'm now teaching young people to use that document to be a voice for themselves and to be for others. So even in the face of no legislation, I'm teaching my young people to know that, hey, look, this is a document that you can use to hold governments and other persons responsible because they have placed their signature on such a document, which means that they owe you something. So I'm using this to teach young people, hey, look, they can sign on, they can choose to ratify and not do something, but there's also something that you can do because we all have rights, and there are ways to go about things. And luckily for me, this works well as a law student.
Indeed, yes. So you're learning and you're transferring that knowledge to others. So that means you're
Certainly,
retaining it and you're understanding it even better. I think
certainly,
that's yeah, and that's powerful. People need to know that they have rights, but they
mm,
also need to know how to advocate for the protection and the promotion of those rights. Um,
certainly.
Otherwise, something can happen, even if you have enabling legislation and persons
Right.
aren't aware of their rights under that legislation, they can still have those rights abrogated and they would be none the wiser as to how to seek
Exactly.
relief.
And so that's why I think it is so important for me to teach my young people to not just be advocates for themselves, but for other people. And that's because too many times I find that our rights are being violated, um, especially as young people, and we don't know what to do. And so I have always said, as an advocate, I will leave no young person behind. I will ensure that every young person that I come in contact with, whenever I leave their presence, be it permanently or be it temporarily, they will be aware of their rights because this is so important. I mean, you know, sometimes we go through our entire life not knowing what sits in our constitutions, what sits in our legislation, what sits in the UNCRPD. And I think a lot of times people use the fact that we don't have that knowledge to take advantage, sadly. And so this is why I leave no young person unaware of what really exists in the documents that are often presented to us.
Thank you so much for the work that you do, Judy. I mean, honestly,
Welcome.
young people aren't informed enough, aren't prepared enough based on how fast the world is changing and how many threats
Certainly,
exist
I
to
agree.
them as young people and to their future, you know.
I agree.
So thank you so much for what you do. And I know
Welcome.
on December 3rd, there was the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Is there something in particular that the Youth with Disabilities Connections would have done to observe that International Day?
Youth with Disabilities Connections, in particular, we did not have any activities. However, I did ensure that my members were, of course, included in all the events, because I think it is really integral for us to not just have events ourselves, but also to support other organizations. I think we are all in this fight together, and so this year for us was a means of lending support, and so we had many of our young people, sign on to different virtual platforms for different events. And I know some of my members were at a Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum roundtable discussion very early in the morning. I know some of them were at a few UN events, including myself. I think I hold many hats. So during that week, it was just one after the other, but we all had the opportunity to participate in one event or another and lend some support to others, because I think a lot of times we start organizations and we think about myself, 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 but we are all in this together, and we all have to lend support to one another, and this is what I try to do.
That's a great strategy, Judy, because as you rightly said, there are so many activities that take place around different international days, or at least like for
Certainly.
this period of time, for 16 days of activism. There's so many things that happen,
Yes.
and collaboration, and as you said, supporting other organizations in the work that they're doing is equally important rather
Yes.
than always trying to be the one to do an event and to,
Mhm.
invite other people to it. It's important to have that camaraderie.
Mhm.
And it builds networking. It certainly does build
Certainly does.
networking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember attending something that was initiated by Sir Optimus International of Grenada. The current president is a public servant with ministry responsible for persons with disabilities in Grenada. So we had a lovely discussion on,
Wow.
various topics that impact everyone, but include
Persons with
persons
disabilities.
with disabilities. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
was so good. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that, as you said, wearing 13 different hats. It's impossible to always be the one
Mm-hmm.
to plan and
And
execute
then
something.
execute. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm assuming too that members of Youth with Disabilities Connections may also be members of their National Association
Yeah.
of and for persons with
At Youth with
disabilities.
Disability, at Youth with Disabilities Connection, sorry. Um, I encourage my young people as much as possible. I call them my young people because I take leadership very important. And I it's near and dear to my heart. And so I encourage as much as possible for the young people to be registered with their local organizations. Because truthfully, they strengthen numbers. And I always tell my young people, we can speak, but unless we come together and we actually decide to collaborate and get things done, then what we are doing is pointless. And so I always say to them, you first start in your country. And for me, this is not where my advocacy started, of course. And my advocacy started well on a more consistent basis with Youth with Disabilities Connections. I was not fortunate to start in my country, but I say to them it's important to start where you are, and then we can branch out.
That's important because sometimes people wait for
Mm.
the opportunity to do something big. And while they're waiting, the problems that they could be helping to solve continue, you know?
Yeah,
So I
that's
think,
true.
yeah. I
Yeah.
like the fact that you said you started with Youth with Disabilities Connections. So how did you end up being chief cook and bottle washer, as it were? 13 different organizations. Because he started with something that was a virtual experience during COVID. But clearly that set a tone. It gave you a platform, and people would have seen and appreciated the value that you were bringing because you not only function regionally, but also internationally.
I think this really, really took off after I started Youth with Disabilities Connections. But I like to be transparent, and I'll share with you exactly what kicked this off. It was also during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2022, actually, that I lost my father. Um, and I I think seeing my father sick and in a more vulnerable position than I am, and him having to ask others for help and others having to be of service to him. I think this is what really, really kicked this up for me. And this is what, you know, really, really sparked that fire in me to be that voice for somebody else. Because I mean, I was born with a disability, and don't get me wrong, but I have learned to navigate my disability. I've learned to navigate life. I rarely ever ask for help, but I guess it hits differently when you see someone you love having to ask you and others for help. I think that hits differently. And so this is what really, really kicked this off for me. This is what sparked that fire. And I mean other persons saw it. I'd have to, of course, give props to the current treasurer of my local association here in Dominica. She may at some point watch this, but she really, really encouraged me. And, this is what kicked this off. I think after Youth with Disabilities Connections, the next position that I held was the president of the Dominica Association of Persons with Disabilities. And I mean, I came from not knowing what I was doing as president to now being able to do so much. And they definitely saw it. They helped. I could not have been where I am at without them. But I think most importantly, I have to give props to God because I think, sometimes we want to do things, but um you don't know how. And um I'm a big believer in just putting things in God's hands and leaving it there and watching him just work. And so there were times during this I said, Lord, I am just going to resign from everything. But God has remained faithful. And though I hold many positions, he continues to give me the strength and all that it takes to really go out there and to do my best and to be an exemplary leader wherever I find myself. And so I've learned over the years that wherever you find yourself, wherever God plants you, you should bloom. And I think God gave me my disability for a reason. I like to say that my disability is a blessing in disguise. Um, and so I do what I can, and I leave the rest up to God, and He continues to be that driving force, most importantly.
Judy, you are so inspiring, honestly. I mean, first, on behalf of Free the Slaves and everybody in the Caribbean Coalition, we express our condolences to you and your family on the loss of your dad. I'm sure as many dads love their daughters and favor their daughters, you may have been daddy's girl. Um,
Certainly.
but it's good to see that you did not allow his passing to pull you down, to leave you
Yeah.
in a state of maybe depression and wanting to leave everything behind. But you allowed it to be used as a catalyst to inspire you, to inspire so many others. And that now has become a global platform. Out
Yes,
of
it's
tragedy
been.
and out of grief, there has come growth. And I applaud
Yeah.
you for that. I
Yeah.
had the opportunity to meet your mom, and she is such a wonderful person.
Thank
So I'm
you.
sure she's also a strong foundation to
Certainly.
encourage you and assist you.
Yeah.
Um,
I think wherever she realized that I need her, even when I don't even ask, she steps in. And family support has just been integral. I think all of my siblings at some point have been roped in to some part of the disability movement. Um, I always tell them that your sister isn't president of many organizations for nothing. At some point, you will find yourself doing something, and so they find themselves attending various events and just being there.
And I think it's powerful for them to hear and to learn too, because they understand better what you are living each and every day,
Yeah,
and they're so much more supportive and encouraging. And I
yeah,
really trust that this type of family dynamic, this type of blessing, as you call it, is something
yeah.
that many youth with disabilities can also experience and benefit from.
Certainly, certainly. I think my siblings they enjoy being a part of so many things. And so whenever I call on them, I always get a positive response. And I mean, even if they are busy, they find the time to step in and do something, even from different parts of the globe, because we all don't live in the same country. I think at some point or another they get roped into something, and they step up, because I always say to them that this is not just Judy leading, but this has to become a family affair, because we need to set the example for other families out there, because I realize that so many young persons navigate life with a disability and they do not have the support that I have.
That's a question that was just in my mind to ask you in terms of do you provide sensitization, let's say, to families of youth with disabilities so that they can appreciate what their role should be, the supportive, caring role. And maybe even your family members can chip in and share their experiences. I think that would be a tremendous session.
Certainly, we do. And it was recently that my mom and I found ourselves at an event, and my mom was sharing with a few of the parents who were there my educational journey. And, my entire family just being so involved, and this is what I try to do. I share my experience. I say I may not be somebody who goes to school and study disability, but my experience is far more valuable than any formal education that I will receive in that field. Although I do plan at some point in the future to do my PhD in disability studies.
That is amazing. That
Yeah.
is amazing because I know you're wearing 13 different hats. As you mentioned earlier, you're also a law student.
Yes, I am.
You are a published author.
Yeah.
That's something I learned about you as well. You're a published
Mhm.
author, and as you said, sharing your experiences in life um, to inspire so many other persons. So tell us a bit about that book in terms of it's on Amazon, if I recall
Yes.
correctly.
So, I penned the book The Girl Who Walked Differently, and this book was released in June 2024, which is a very special day for my family and I. It is my mom's birthday.
Oh,
Um, and this book is a children's book, but it chronicles my life growing up with a disability. I have a condition called osteoporosis, which limits my ability to walk or stand for a prolonged period of time without experiencing pains. um and so it chronicles my life, my educational journey, and my aspirations, which I have to say, not many of them are aspirations anymore, but they are realities. With the only aspiration that's pending is to become High Court Judge Judy. That's the only one that's
oh, so
pending. But it
Judge Judy, yes.
yeah, it chronicles my life and
Oh,
some of the struggles that I experienced growing up, with bullying being one of the major ones. But it also highlights the fact that I did not allow my disability to become a determining factor in what I did with life and who I became. And so this book aims to share with children from the ages of 5 to 11 years old, thereabouts, to no matter what the circumstances is, no matter where you find yourself, never allow your circumstance to be that determining and limiting factor in what you do.
that is so true. And definitely, whether someone is living with a disability or has had a tragic circumstance occur in their lives, some
Mhm.
traumatic event, we're not defined by what has happened to us. And we
Certainly,
can carve out a powerful identity that shows that we have grown from that trauma. We have grown through
certainly.
those circumstances. And I think Judge Judy Sango sounds perfect.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
is so good.
that's the only one that's pending. I actually recently completed my certifications to become a certified Android application developer. So this was the one before
Wow.
the last. Yeah, this was the one before the last. So
I'm
it's
speechless. This.
it's just only one.
Okay. Great,
It's only
great,
one for
great.
now.
If someone wants to get in touch with Youth with Disabilities Connections, maybe they're living with a disability, they feel isolated, they want to find a family, as it were, among other youth with disabilities in the Caribbean, how would they make contact with you? Are you
Sure.
like on social media and so forth? Hmm.
Yes, we do have a Facebook page that is called Youth with Disabilities Connections. Um, and you can, of course, reach me at the following emails. They are author Judy Sango at gmail.com, which is AUTHORJUDYSONGSANGO at gmail.com. And you can also reach me at judylovesschool@gmail.com.
Judy Loves School. That is so sweet. Judy Loves School at gmail.com and author Judy Sango at gmail.com.
Yes.
Great. And you said there's a Facebook page for Youth with
Yes.
Disabilities Connections, so persons can always reach out to you, send a message through the page, and get
Yes.
some more information about the
But
work.
for those who may be unable to access the Facebook page or reach me via email, I also have my own personal Facebook that you can reach out to me. My Facebook is Judy Sango. Well, Judy put Trudy Kenisha Sango. But you can reach me there as well, and I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with the formal Youth of Disabilities Connections. And of course, we are always willing to welcome new persons into the family, because truthfully, Youth with Disabilities Connections is a family. Here, no one is left behind, nobody is excluded. We are an all-inclusive, no matter your disability, no matter your experience. This is where you can find family. And we may not all be together in the same island, but we are all virtually connected.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Judy. It has been
You
a
are welcome.
pleasure, as it always is, to sit and chat with you. I always leave encouraged and inspired.
No problem.
Really, really.
No
So, for
problem.
those of you who are looking at our interview at this time, this has been Member Spotlight with Judy Sango of Youth with Disabilities Connections. Judy has been on our Caribbean Connections podcast, and you can also find that in our YouTube channel on our Caribbean Connections playlist. So I'll
Yeah.
also pop a link to that interview.
But,
Um,
but I must say before I leave, Mr. Alexander, it is always a pleasure and a privilege of mine to sit with you, someone whom I've come to know and to love. And I must say thank you so very much for always including Youth with Disabilities Connections in whatever you find yourself doing. Thank you so very much, sir.
it is my pleasure. And I will tell you, there's a lot coming in 2026. So,
No problem.
all
No
right then.
problem.
So
All
God's
right.
blessing to you and your wonderful family.
You
Continue
too, sir.
to thrive. And this interview is taking place shortly before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to you and to
Same to
yours, and
you.
may 2026 be full of success.
Same
For
to
you.
you and your family, sir, and to everyone
Yeah.
watching. I want to take the opportunity to say God bless you through this holiday season and do have a bright and prosperous 2026.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Judy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.